In today's video, I'm talking about mental health and DJing. Now, a very serious topic, yet an important one to cover off, especially as life is starting to feel very much normal here in the UK, and only second to Christmas, DJs, especially in bars and clubs, are embarking on the busiest time of year, and that is freshers, when all of these students return or start universities. So bars and clubs are extremely busy, and I know a lot of DJs that are pretty much working solidly for the next 2 to 3 weeks, depending on when the unis go back. Now, a quick disclaimer before we start this video: I am in no way a medical professional. None of the information given in this video should be seen as medical advice. It is my own opinion based on my own experiences, and therefore it is for edutainment, we'll go with that word, purposes only. If you're not feeling in the right mindset or you're not feeling very well, then please seek help from a trained, qualified medical professional. Second little disclaimer is that whilst I'm talking about mental health pressures of DJs, this is just the industry that I know the best. I'm not here to try and rubbish other industries. I know that many jobs, many professions are extremely stressful and have their own pressures which can have an impact on mental health. I'm simply talking about DJing because that is the industry that I know the best. On with the content. Now, in terms of this video, I'm going to break it down into two key parts. First and foremost, we're going to talk about some of the pressures of being a DJ and why it could have a negative impact on your own mental health. And second of all, some of the things that I do personally to minimize those pressures impacting me in a negative way. Let's launch straight into it then. Really obvious one to kick us off, and that is the fact that you are working nights, and humans are not naturally designed to be nocturnal, especially here in the United Kingdom. Around the winter time, it's not light for very many hours of the day. You're traveling to venues in the dark. You're working in a venue that perhaps does not have any windows, so you can't see outside, and you're traveling home in the dark, and you are sleeping when most people are awake in the daytime. And also as well, it's a lot harder to sleep because there is daylight outside. Factor number 2 is the fact that DJing is actually quite an isolated and lonely life. For those of you watching thinking, well, hold on a minute here, that doesn't stack up, you are out partying all the time, that probably represents under 5% of all of the gigs that I do. The reality is you are driving often very far away from home on your own. You are arriving at venues on your own. The DJ box is pretty much in isolation from anyone else in the club, apart from customers that want to come up and request a song or two. You have to concentrate on the music that you're playing and giving the crowd a good night. So therefore, you don't really have the time or opportunity to speak to people around you. You leave the club after everybody else and you drive home by yourself. That is the reality of being a DJ. The same can be said about tour DJs as well, who are getting flights here, there and everywhere. Yes, they might have a team around them, but often you are pretty much on your own. Fact number 3 is the fact that DJing is a freelance job. Now, that has its perks in the fact that you are your own boss, but you are only as good as your last booking. There is a lot of pressure to deliver night after night after night. DJs don't get holiday pay here in the United Kingdom. DJs do not get sick pay. And it's one of those jobs where you have to be on form all of the time. So if you're feeling a little bit under the weather and you perhaps cannot afford a sick day, or like you can't find somebody to cover your night because there's often only one DJ in the venue per night or in that room that you're working in, you're potentially going to have to DJ a night where you feel under the weather and give a very high energy performance when you really don't feel up to it. So there is that pressure. The other thing is as well is that DJs often get burnt out and take very limited holiday because the fact that it's freelance, you need to make sure that you can afford to take the time off. It's not like a contracted job where you get a set allowance of annual leave or paid holidays. So that is something to consider as well. And then the final factor to consider is social media. This definitely has an impact, and it wasn't really a big thing when I started DJing in the clubs all those years ago, but over the years it's become more and more kind of center stage. And these days my feed is always got posts of DJs posting videos of their dance floor, making reels of transitions that they're making in their bedrooms, stuff in the studio, posts of them in the club, and sometimes it just feels like we're all in a little bit of almost competition with each other. And sometimes you feel bad if your dance floor isn't as packed as all of the ones that you see on social media from other DJs in the other towns. It certainly can have an impact on your own mental state, and also as well like your feeling of, I guess, adequacy as a DJ. So now that we have identified some of the factors that can have an impact on your mental health, how can you minimize the risk of it impacting you in a negative way? Well, these are some of the things that I do. First and foremost, when it comes to sleeping, I always set an alarm so that I don't miss all of the daylight hours. I try and get a solid 6 to 9 hours sleep per night. That is very, very important. But if I say get in at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I make sure that I am out of bed by kind of 11:30/12 o'clock the next day, therefore allowing me to get some fresh air, some exercise, and some of that sunlight before the next gig. It's so important not to spend your whole day wasting away in bed, no matter how much the previous night has taken it out of you. The next thing that you can do is invest in some good blackout curtains. There is nothing worse than having a disturbed sleep when you get home from your gig, having the light seeping through your window at 9 a.m. when all you want to do is catch a couple of extra hours. Linked to sleep is diet and exercise, and just maintaining a healthy lifestyle overall. So this means in the time that you've got spare, try and get some fresh air, try and get some exercise, maybe go to the gym. That certainly helps me out. And also as well, eat well. Do not get tempted by the takeaway at 4 o'clock in the morning every single morning. It is easy to fall into that trap. When I'm eating well, I'm sleeping well, and I'm exercising, I generally have a more positive mindset. I feel a lot more energetic about my DJ gigs, and I have a much more positive sort of mindset. That is definitely something that helps me out. I'm not saying cut out the takeaways completely. Of course, you can have a treat every now and then, but if it becomes like the norm, then I do think that it is a little bit of a slippery slope. That's my own personal opinion, okay? The other thing as well is do not take too much notice of social media. I have never ever been booked for a DJ gig via social media. I do think that it is okay to have a brand online, but don't let it overtake your life. It is very, very easy for social media to get out of control. But yeah, I've never ever had a gig that has been because of my social media following or because of a post. Maybe you have. Comment down below if that has been the case for you, but it certainly hasn't worked for me. So just try not to get too caught up in the world of social media. Don't feel like you have to be obsessed by it. You know, it's fine to have an online presence, but just don't let it take over your life, basically. And then finally is talk to other DJs. You know, often when you are driving home on your own, other DJs in your network will be doing exactly the same. I've had many conversations, and really good conversations, with some of my network when I've been driving on my way home alone to find out a little bit about their night, what's gone well for them, what hasn't gone so well for them, and just to have that conversation. My closest friends now are, hand on heart, other DJs, and whilst I don't see them every single week, whilst I don't go out with them because we are all entertaining, in these venues week in, week out, we do keep very, very closely in touch, and that is often on the drive home. And also as well, it will help to keep you awake. Also linked to talking with other people, if you are feeling not yourself, in not the right mindset, perhaps you are feeling extended periods of anxiety, or you're feeling particularly low, and this is happening more and more so, these are the times when it is really, really important to utilize your network. Speak to people, whether it be your family or your friends, or if you feel like you cannot speak to anybody, then please reach out to the professional services that are around you. There is always somebody out there that is willing to listen to your story and provide some advice. Hope you found this video useful, guys. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you in the next one.